The hugeness of the disaster crushed them, and, for a long time, they maintained a silence which they had not the courage to break. At last, Suzanne said: "But, father, they will pay you all the same." "Why? On what evidence?" "Does it require evidence?" "Of course." "And have you none?" "Yes, I have." "Well?" "It was in the box." "In the box that has disappeared?" "Yes." "And the other man will get the money." "Why, that would be outrageous! Surely, father, you can stop the payment?" "Who knows? Who knows? That man must be extraordinarily clever. He has such wonderful resources. Remember, think how he got hold of the desk." His energy revived. He sprang up and, stamping his foot on the floor: "No, no, no!" he shouted. "He shan't have that million, he shan't! Why should he? After all, sharp as he may be, he can do nothing either. If he calls for the money, they'll lock him up. Ah, we shall see, my friend." "Have you thought of something, father?" "I shall defend our rights to the bitter end, come what may. And we shall succeed. The million belongs to me, and I mean to have it." A few minutes later, he dispatched this telegram: "Governor, Crédit Foncier, Rue Capucine, Paris. Am owner number 514, series 23. Oppose by every legal method payment to any other person. Gerbois." At almost the same time, the Crédit Foncier received another telegram: "Number 514, series 23 is in my possession. Arsène Lupin." Whenever I sit down to tell one of the numberless adventures which compose the life of Arsène Lupin, I feel a genuine embarrassment, because it is quite clear to me that even the least important of these adventures is known to every one of my readers. As a matter of fact, there is not a move on the part of our national thief, as he had been happily called, but has been described all over the country, not an exploit but has been studied from every point of view, not an action but has been commented upon with an abundance of detail generally reserved for stories of heroic deeds. Who, for instance, does not know that strange case of the blonde lady, with the curious episodes which were reported under flaring headlines as "Number 514, series 23, The Murder in the Avenue Henri Martin," and "The Blue Diamond"? What an excitement there was about the intervention of Holmlock Shears, the famous English detective! What an effervescence surrounded the varying fortunes that marked the struggle between those two great artists! And what a din along the boulevard on the day when the newsboy shouted: "Arrest of Arsène Lupin!" My excuse is that I can supply something new. I can furnish the key to the puzzle. There's always a certain mystery about these adventures. I can dispel it. I reprint articles that have been read over and over again. I copy out old interviews. But all these things I rearrange and classify and put to the exact test of truth. My collaborator in this work is Arsène Lupin himself, whose kindness to me is inexhaustible. I am also under an occasional obligation to the unspeakable Wilson, the friend and confidant of Holmlock Shears. My readers will remember the Homeric laughter that greeted the publication of the two telegrams. The name of Arsène Lupin alone was a guarantee of originality, a promise of amusement for the gallery. And the gallery, in this case, was the whole world. An enquiry was immediately set on foot by the Crédit Foncier, and it was ascertained that number 514, series 23, had been sold by the Versailles branch of the Crédit Lyonnais to Major Bressy of the artillery. Now, the major had died of a fall from his horse, and it appeared that he told his brother officers, some time before his death, that he had been obliged to part with his ticket to a friend. "That friend was myself," declared Monsieur Gerbois. "Prove it," objected the governor of the Crédit Foncier. "Prove it? That's quite easy. 20 people will tell you that I kept up constant relations with the major, and that we used to meet at the café on the Place d'Armes. It was there that, one day, to oblige him in a moment of financial embarrassment, I took his ticket off him and gave him 20 francs for it. Have you any witnesses to the transaction?" "No." Then upon what do you base your claim? Upon the letter which he wrote me on the subject. What letter? A letter pinned to the ticket. Produce it. But it was in the stolen writing desk. Find it." The letter was communicated to the press by Arsène Lupin. A paragraph inserted in the Echo de France, which has the honor of being his official organ, and in which he seems to be one of the principal shareholders, announced that he was placing in the hands of Maître Detinan, his counsel, the letter which Major Bressy had written to him, Lupin, personally. There was a burst of delight. Arsène Lupin was represented by counsel. Arsène Lupin, respecting established customs, had appointed a member of the bar to act for him. The reporters rushed to interview Maître Detinan, an influential radical deputy, a man endowed with the highest integrity and a mind of uncommon shrewdness, which was, at the same time, somewhat sceptical and given to paradox. Maître Detinan was exceedingly sorry to say that he had never had the pleasure of meeting Arsène Lupin, but he had, in point of fact, received his instructions, was greatly flattered at being selected, keenly alive to the honor shown him, and determined to defend his client's rights to the utmost. He opened his brief and without hesitation showed the major's letter. It proved the sale of the ticket, but did not mention the purchaser's name. It began, "My dear friend," simply. "My dear friend" means me, added Arsène Lupin, in a note enclosing the major's letter. "And the best proof is that I have the letter." The bevy of reporters at once flew off to M. Gerbois, who could do nothing but repeat, "My dear friend is no one but myself. Arsène Lupin stole the major's letter with the lottery ticket." "Tell him to prove it," was Lupin's rejoinder to the journalists. "But he stole the desk!" exclaimed M. Gerbois, in front of the same journalists. "Tell him to prove it," retorted Lupin once again. And a delightful entertainment was provided for the public by this duel between the two owners of number 514, series 23, by the constant coming and going of the journalists, and by the coolness of Arsène Lupin, as opposed to the frenzy of poor M. Gerbois. Unhappy man! The press was full of his lamentations. He confessed the full extent of his misfortunes in a touchingly ingenuous way. "It's Suzanne's dowry, gentlemen, that the villain has stolen. For myself, personally, I don't care. But for Suzanne, just think, 1,000,000, 100,000 francs. Ah, I always said the desk contained the treasure." He was told in vain that his adversary, when taking away the desk, knew nothing of the existence of the lottery ticket, and that, in any case, no one could have foreseen that this particular ticket would win the first prize. All he did was to moan, "Don't talk to me. Of course he knew. If not, why should he have taken the trouble to steal that wretched desk? For unknown reasons, but certainly not to get hold of a scrap of paper which, at that time, was worth the modest sum of 20 francs. The sum of 1,000,000! He knew it! He knows everything! Ah, you don't know the sort of a man he is, the ruffian! He hasn't defrauded you of 1,000,000, you see!" This talk could have gone on a long time yet. But 12 days later, M. Gerbois received a letter from Arsène Lupin, marked "Private and Confidential," which worried him not a little. "Dear Sir, the gallery is amusing itself at our expense. Do you not think that the time has come to be serious? I, for my part, have quite made up my mind. The position is clear. I hold a ticket which I am not entitled to cash, and you are entitled to cash a ticket which you do not hold. Therefore, neither of us can do anything without the other. Now, you would not consent to surrender your rights to me, nor I to give up my ticket to you. What are we to do? I see only one way out of the difficulty. Let us divide. 500,000 for you, 500,000 for me. Is not that fair? And would not this judgment of Solomon satisfy the sense of justice in each of us? I propose this as an equitable solution, but also an immediate solution. It is not an offer which you have time to discuss, but a necessity before which circumstances compel you to bow. I give you 3 days for reflection. I hope that,